It's interesting because you can sign up for these Zoom sessions either on the silicondojo.com or on meetup.com. And you got most of your signups on silicondojo.com. And the guy I have next week, who's the VP for AI models, got most of his signups on Meetup. So it's weird how that works. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. As you may or may not know, I'm Eli, the computer guy. This is silicondojo.com or part of silicondojo.com. I get a lot of questions from students basically asking things like, how do I get a job? How do I build stuff? How do I find problems? That type of deal. And it's incredibly difficult as me as an individual to try to explain that, especially in the modern world. So my idea is to bring real technology professionals basically on to have a fireside chat and they can tell you what their opinions are. One of the important things to think about in the real world of technology is it's not what people say, it's where the hell they actually place their money. So you get a lot of people out there flapping their gums, but then like where are you actually dropping 100 grand? Like that's the interesting question. So today we have Shon Urbas on. He is the co-founder and CTO of Pandium, an integrations company. Let's see, if you're interested in these, you can go to silicondojo.com. You can become a member and sign up. And yeah, that's about it. You may hear me rustling paper. I'm up in upstate New York right now, and so I have no access to a printer. So I had to write. Hopefully, I can read my own questions, which might be a question. Anyways, Sean, welcome. Thank you for showing up. Yep. Oh shit, you can't unmute yourself. Okay, don't mute yourself again then. There we go.
All right, sorry about that. Hey, how's it going, Eli?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Okay, so you are with Pandium. So what I'm most interested in today is you did a presentation at AI in Production and an AI event in Asheville, basically talking about quirks of actually trying to deploy artificial intelligence. And so that's what I'm most interested in. But before we get there, I kind of have to get my viewers up to speed on who the hell you are and why anybody should care. So when we talk about you being the co-founder and CTO of Pandium, what exactly is Pandium? What is your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sean. I've been doing programming professionally now for over 25 years. The last 8 has been working, or 9 has been working on this company called Pandium. Pandium is about um, helping our customers, which are other businesses, build and deploy integration ecosystems. So a really simple way I like to think about it is there's software out there where people want to have their own app stores, and we help that software deploy their own app stores. Um, and so, yeah, the project that I presented at the AI in production was around actually building one of these apps, one of these integrations, and using AI to do it, and doing it in a way that AI is a part of the process, as Eli knows. It's a small part, actually, but
Fair enough. So when you talk about integrations, are you actually building apps? So are you building like a task manager for a company? Or when we talk about integrations, are you simply allowing them to connect their systems into like Google Tasks or something like that?
right, that's a great question. We are our own platform. The integrations are little apps that run on Pandium. We manage all the authentication and resources that those apps use. The authentication being the most important thing. Um, and we also provide user interfaces and discoverability. So someone can go to a web page inside our customers' software and find all the different integrations that they are have listed on their marketplace
Yeah.
and that can connect to their own software. So we power that experience. We power the actual individual applets themselves, the integrations, which are just code. Um, and on the back end, we allow people to administer this. So like we have customers with thousands of these connections where it's just a single piece of software connected to another piece of software. But they have thousands of those connections because of the way everyone has their own silos of information. And we help make sure that those integrations are running. So yes, a part of that is also like doing the actual task running.
Interesting. So how many employees do you guys have now?
We're up to 13,
Man, okay. So you've been around, you said 8 years, 9 years?
8 years, 8, 9 years, 9 years in January.
Oh, wow. So where do you come up with the idea? So like so many people nowadays, when you think about a startup idea, it's a dog dating app, it's the next social media site. Where the hell do you come up with the idea of, hey, it's a billion integrations? Like, where does that idea come from?
Yeah. Airbnb for tugboat captains is like my favorite. Just random one of those. Well, so before Pandium, I worked with my co-founder Christina. She's the CEO. We worked together at this company called Handshake. They got acquired by Shopify. Handshake used to, and still does as a part of Shopify, manage B2B sales orders. So it's like wholesalers. They go to retailers and they're like, hey, place an order on my wholesale site. It's a really similar as the customer to a business, but this is business to business. And so what we were tasked with at Handshake, um, there's all these sales orders that are being collected from these stores and stuff. We need to get that data into Handshake's customers' ERPs, or ERP being like an enterprise resource process, their own systems and their accounting and all that stuff. And so we had to build essentially like a single tenanted model of what Pandium is now for Handshake specifically. But Handshake wasn't about integrations. Like their focus was on taking these orders, these sales orders. It was all iPad based, and you had to sync the data back to central servers and stuff. And that's where they were really focused. This integration infrastructure that we ended up building at Handshake, it wasn't that great at the end. There was a lot of compromises, just as there is with any software project. You go in, you have like a huge idea, maybe it's like 10 epics of work, and you end up with 2 being done and the rest being in the backlog. The infrastructure and everything we built for Handshake and the tools we were using just didn't really fit. And so when Handshake ended up getting acquired, we spun out and we just decided, hey, what if we made this thing that we were building for the last 2 or 3 years? This is a product. And that's how Pandium started.
That's interesting. So is it still involved at Handshake at all? Because that's one of the big things.
Handshake was our first customer until they got acquired.
Oh, okay. So that was all, because that's one of the things is you have so many people like working in environments, but the whole question of who owns intellectual property when you're on payroll.
Oh, absolutely. This was so we launched their marketplace. That's all Handshakes and stuff. The thing that they ended up building on us was a new integration that wasn't supported on the thing that I originally built. Because again, a lot of compromises. It wasn't the focus of Handshake to have an integration platform. It is the focus of Pandium to be an integration platform.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Fair enough. Then, so when we start looking at the size of Pandium, so we get an idea of like where you are in the world, can you say approximately like what's your annual recurring revenue? Like how much do you guys actually make per year ish?
It's in the 7 figures. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's good. Okay, fair enough. And do you have a lot of investment? Do you have much investment?
We do.
So okay. So how many clients do you guys have? So when you talk about these integrations, how many people do you actually support?
Yeah, so we're powering integrations now for I think over 12,000 businesses, and direct customers are measured in the tens to 20s. Like actual customers of ours are like in the 20s. And then it's their customers who are actually having these integrations.
So are you white box then or
We are completely white labeled.
that's fascinating. Okay, so
So
yeah.
you shouldn't know we exist if you're using us. Like we power some pretty big marketplaces now, and you won't know that. It's cool. One of our customers is ShipBob,
Yeah.
and I think we power. So ShipBob, they do third party logistics. All they do is manage warehouses and products. Their customers are businesses who sell things on Shopify or BigCommerce or Wix, wherever. And so every time I get a package from a store that I may have bought something from and it comes from ShipUp, I actually literally, we probably have the code that allowed that order to go from that Shopify site into ShipUp. And it's just kind of cool when you actually like see the real effects of like where software actually has an effect in the real world.
Yeah, that's cool. Then so okay, so I mean, if you have so few like real customers, actually the paying customers, how do you acquire those? I mean, 20 is small. I'm like small. That would make me nervous. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a nervous person. Like, how do you actually get those type of customers?
It takes a lot of patience and time. I
All right, fair
don't
enough.
know what else to say. The sales cycles are a little bit longer. It's this and this is I think a thing with any B2B software platform. It's like it's not as easy as just signing up and giving your credit card and now you're launched.
Yeah.
You have to specifically, especially with us, like you're trying to white label our platform. And so there is a little bit of like custom, it's not custom so much, but there's configuration and whatnot that goes into, hey, I need to embed an iframe inside my dashboard. Like, what is the protocol for that? And like, it's not something you could just spin up without a little bit of like, hey, let's just talk. Well, how does your system work? Because everyone's what I'm getting into now is like details on session management. Everyone's session management is a little bit different, and there's no real way to like. We want to know what user. We need to know the user who's actually installing the integration at the end of the day, and so they have to pass us that information. Getting into details. Sorry.
No, no, that's interesting. So with that and with those very large clients, and then they're dealing with 12,000 of their smaller clients, do you, being in the tech world, was there additional legal overhead that you had to worry about with this? Like, do you have more lawyers than most startups do?
I don't know if we have more lawyers than most startups do, but one of the things that we recently had to do because it's really important in this space is get what's called a SOC 2 certification. And so what that is we had an independent auditor come in, help us build procedures if we didn't have a certain procedure in a certain space, and then come and check on us regularly to make sure we're following those procedures. So an example is like, are we following good software management practices with respect to how code gets into production? So if you have anything at scale, you need to have code review that happens. So someone after you push pull release and put your code up on GitHub, at least at our company, we actually require two people to review and do code review. All the automated tests pass. There's then also a check where we have a product manager go in and do a user acceptance testing. As long as all of that passes, then it can merge to Sandbox. If it's lived on Sandbox for a week and hasn't failed or caused any errors, then we push it to our production. Laying out that process and then making sure we follow it is an example of like something that you have to deal with when you're uh, doing a SOC 2. But there's tons of like little things like that. How do you add users? Um, how do you make sure when someone leaves that you've offboarded them properly? You have to have a procedure.
Yeah.
It's different than it was 25 years ago. I'll say that.
Fair enough. Well, how do you cover your ass? So if you've only got 20 customers, but then they support 12,000 customers, like with so many of these software as a service products anymore, man, they just crap the fuck out and they just stop working. And they're like, terms of service, what are you going to do? Are you still like at the terms of service level of like if your system just craps out, you're like, we're doing our best, but
No, we have contractual SLAs with our customers. So if we're down, they're able to uh, not pay us legally. And also, like, feels bad to be down. So we try not to be. We actually have really good reliability. We measure I mean, I guess the last big outage was actually thinking about it was around my birthday last year. It was almost a year ago, Um, it was the week before Helene, so it wasn't caused by Helene. But one of our customers, they had a huge surge in usage that was completely unanticipated. And so they basically doubled their customer count overnight on our system. And we were it sucked for a few hours and we got over it. And everything works out in the end. It's interesting with integrations specifically, at least in this particular case, a lot of the time it doesn't necessarily have to be real time. So like if something happens once an hour or you order something, it doesn't instantly have to hit the warehouse to go get picked. There's still humans involved um and so there's actually like some flexibility built into uh if you go down. That said, we don't go down. The I think the biggest thing is our customers have SLAs. We're also like super customer focused. So like we have Slack channels with every one of our customers. Slack is like a Discord for everyone out there, but for companies. And it's it's different than how it was like the way we do customer service, at least like 10 years ago, where you would keep everyone away and you have like a whole process and ticketing system. Just come talk to us in Slack. Like we'll get an engineer right in there right away. Like it's so easy. Um, and so people really like, they're actually, it's probably our biggest, if people were rating us, it would be our customer service and our reliability.
Interesting. Because I'm just curious, especially as we start going into talking about AI and how quirky AI can be. Because so I basically ran a managed service provider company. And back in the day, I was liable for so much. Again, I look at software as a service companies and I'm like, how do they get away with this? Like, so not only did I have general liability insurance for if I kick a server, but literally, if I fucked up a configuration, I had errors and omissions insurance just
We
so
have that.
so they could sue my ass. So like
Yeah.
so with liability, so you still have that kind of insurance in place.
Oh yeah, we have that insurance. We pay it every year. We have on our income, our P&L, there is a line for lawyers,
Mhm.
and it's the same level. I mean, it goes up a little bit every year, and it's just something you manage, and um, yeah, they take care of it. I really don't have to. I haven't been too worried, and also like don't provide. You shouldn't be getting like your CX is failing if you're getting into like, oh my god, we're gonna sue you levels of anger. And when I say see it, like the customer experience, the people who are supposed to manage your customers and keep them happy or yourself, right? Like there are ways to do this that don't require legal ramifications. The other thing though is like they can't hold you liable more than for what they pay you. So it's like um, there's unless you're malicious in it. So just act with integrity. Make sure you follow your own processes, and hopefully no one will sue you.
Okay, fair enough. And before we get to the AI stuff, then, so what does your tech stack look like? So if you looked at your environment, more or less, I know you don't want to give away everything, but like more or
No,
less.
I talk about it all the time. So we are primarily a Kubernetes cluster. It's been modified. We have our own operators running on it, which are pieces of software that do different things in response to Kubernetes objects. We also, so on top of that cluster, we are running um, code that's written in Go for some of our backend services. That's really what Kubernetes itself is written in. So that's why it's led some of our APIs and operators to be written in it. But we also have what I would call our middleware or middle layer, which is our public API. That's all written on Python. We use Fast API and super happy with that. And then we have some Java services going on. And all of this is like orchestrated using a language called Terraform.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, we're pretty polyglot at our company, our CLI. So we allow our engineering users who are running these integrations and developing them. There's a CLI you can use to interface with Pandium that allows you to run the integration locally and capture all those secrets. That's written in Rust. So we pick up the tool that's best, and also like sometimes just things interest us. And like a CLI is a great example of like, hey, let's try a new language and see. Like it's such a tool that's separated from the rest of our code base. It was fun to be able to try a new language there.
That's cool. So how many coders do you have on your team then? So you got about 13. How many are actual technical people?
8 or 9.
Oh wow, that many. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then where is this kind of thing hosted? Is it like AWS, Azure?
We're on GCP.
Oh, you're on G.
Um,
Why? Yeah,
when,
like you almost never hear
yeah,
GCP, so why go there?
just great. They're in the third. Um, I just read that maybe Azure's now at number 1, which blows me away. It's all open API, open AI spend. But we are on GCP because when Kubernetes first came out, there was no managed service for it. And we were on AWS at the time. And managing a Kubernetes cluster, especially 8 or 9 years ago when it was brand new, we've got on Kubernetes when it was like version 1.6 was the first
Okay.
production Kubernetes cluster. We're now on 1.25, 1.26 or something. Um, Google GCP was the first company to offer managed Kubernetes, GKE. And also at the time, to be frank, we were part of a startup. We did a startup accelerator. We did Techstars. And one of the things that Google GCP gave Techstars companies was $100,000 in
Yeah.
cloud credits. And so it was just a really easy, they all do this though. So like you can get cloud credits from any of them if you're associated with an accelerator. And if you somehow manage to spend $100,000, you've done a great job for them because that means you're going to be on them for a while anyway. You have like 1 year once you start, and I think we got like half of it used up before we ended up having to pay.
That's cool. So just out of curiosity, since again, having the students listen here, so you're on GCP. If for some reason you had to migrate off of GCP, how horrible would that process be? Or would it be?
When we started, it would have been very easy. Now it's going to be a little bit harder. Um, the managed Kubernetes and all that stuff, I think that would totally work on Amazon or Azure without much change. What we need to do is so there's this language again called Terraform. It's also known as Tofu, Open Tofu, which is the like now open source version of it. Um, and we would need to write our providers. We would need to rewrite like how our infrastructure is laid out using Amazon templates, for example, versus GCP. But I doubt it would take. The one thing that we do use that would probably be hard to just drop in replace is PubSub, which is Google's message bus product. Um, if we were to first, we would have to like host that ourselves. So go to something like Kafka, or if we were going to AWS Kinesis. But yeah, there's analogs for everything we're using. I'm sorry if I'm getting too detailed, but
Yeah.
I think it would be not like a huge amount of work, but it is work.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably 1 to 3 months
Wow.
of
Okay.
work if we needed to do it. Like that's how much I would want to have planning. I've done those type of migrations before. You're spending 2 years planning those things. I had to go from Rackspace to Amazon
Yeah.
at a previous job, and that was where I cut my teeth actually on DevOps, modern DevOps. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. So before we get to the AI, just because you keep bringing up points, so you talked about Terraform, and there's a big drama with Terraform 2 years ago, I think, and that's where we get this thing called Open Tofu. So Terraform, right? This is orchestration software, basically.
Infrastructure as code.
Yeah.
So you write down, hey, I want a virtual machine with this image deployed on AWS.
Yeah.
And you write that as a JSON object or Terraform object. It looks like JSON.
Yeah.
And apply it. And then Terraform figures out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So,
cool.
so do you still use Terraform, or have you gone over to Open Tofu?
We still, no, that's not true. So half our stack is on Terraform and half our stack is on Open Tofu. So when we first started, everything was like handwritten Terraform, and we did a lot of our own templating. But now there are really cool software packages that allow you to write in like Python or TypeScript or Java, things that end up becoming Tofu or becoming Terraform. I don't know if you guys have heard of the CDK Cloud Development Kit. It's a really cool open source project. Or Plumi is another one that does a similar thing, and that's specifically Python based. But it allows you using normal languages to describe your infrastructure, so it really makes it easy to like, um, without getting into it too hard. Terraform has a way of it's not procedural the language, um, so like doing a loop is actually about matching a specific. I don't even know how to explain it. It's really nice using Python where I could just loop and say, hey, I have 10 servers. I need 10 servers. Just make me 10 servers, please. Not, I don't have to describe like, oh, I need this much. And you have to figure out the math and figuring out. That's like sort of what Terraform makes you do. Anyway, so CDK is a really cool thing. And that generates open tofu. So we're, um, we're slowly moving our cluster structure to that.
Okay.
And it would actually make this AW, like this hypothetical migration we just talked about, way easier because CDK is actually very nice about sort of abstracting away some of the differences between cloud providers, but they're all very different. So you gotta, I don't know how well anyway, never really thought about it.
So,
So I can't vouch.
but from a CTO position, because I know in the whole Terraform, they changed, so they had been completely open source, and then they changed their licensing, and everybody lost their damn minds. So you as a CTO, why do you continue? Because I know a lot of people are like, fuck them and went to Open Tofu. So why do you keep anything on Terraform just as a decision point?
It's just simple inertia, tech debt. It's one, like I don't fully understand what happened with HashiCorp there and like what are they doing, but um like they just tore apart the community. It's just so idiotic. But the same thing happened with Redis, right? And now like Redis, the guy for who owned Redis came back. I'm like confused now if we're okay to use Redis again. Um, there's some of these things. It's like the software was open license and the version we're using. It's not like that changed. It doesn't. It's not retroactive. It's just new versions.
Uh,
So if you are happy with the current version and you're happy with like the security posture, because that's the real reason why you would want to update something, right? Hey, there's some big vulnerability in a process that you already have working, like that, or there's maybe some new feature. Um, but yeah, no, ultimately it's just inertia, tech debt, and just having time. And we're literally in the middle of the process. It just takes a while. Like it's either, hey, we can like rewrite all our clusters, or we can launch a new feature that brings in more customers. And as a CTO, I really would love to rewrite my clusters, but also I want more customers. And so I rather focus on that side of it if we can. That said, it's very important to tend to your tech debt. So we do have like a carved out third of our I don't want to say third, but there's a carved out team that's just working on always just updating, looking at our current load. Hey, how can we make this 10x better? Um, to give you another example, so Open Tofu is to Terraform as this tool I'm going to call Open Bao, BAO, like the Chinese uh, Bao. Um, it is to Vault. Do you know what Vault is? It's HashiCorp's secret engine. So when they did that whole schism in the community, it wasn't just Terraform that got forked.
oh,
Vault got forked. And so now there's this thing called OpenBow, and we're actually going to be implementing that in the next few weeks because we need to upgrade our Vault sold.
yeah, okay, fair enough. Cool. Okay, so now let's get to why we're all here talking about AI. So when you see AI and all the AI products out there, and you're a CTO, what problems do you actually see AI being able, like before you started trying to deploy it? Like when you just sit there as a CTO and you look at all your infrastructure, Like, what do you think AI can actually help you with?
Um, well, like to zoom out a little bit, it depends on what you mean by AI, right? Before the latest revolution, I say, with these chat-based LLM models, um, there was a lot of AI that goes into just keeping production up. You have things that are managing monitoring, and like if a signal fails, some automatic process comes into play, and like in some ways, I'm being a little pedantic, but like an elevator is a AI. You know, we've been using AI for decades. We were able to replace the person who would move the elevator. It's the same idea, right? But I think your question's more like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like where's the more modern like chat
Oh yeah,
GPT and LLMs and
we've had automation forever. So if a
right,
service fails, reboot or
right, 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 right.
like yeah, like AI is
I
always
AI as this thing that you can talk to. I find it really useful for analysis.
okay.
Um, I find it really useful for writing code. Um, I don't, and when I say writing code, that's the smallest part of shipping, to be honest. And when I say ship, like actually delivering a feature, um, there's a lot of ideation that goes into, hey, we should have this feature before we actually write anything down. There needs to be thought about like how is this going to scale in our current infrastructure. There's all these different things. I can't use AI for that. I can have AI write me like a really cool API
Yeah.
that I've described already, but it's not going to like. And then I have to go in as a human and review that and make sure it didn't hallucinate. It like understood what I needed, and it's a I like to think of it as a really really good like junior software intern. It's
Yeah.
very eager. I heard it described just yesterday. This was in Hacker News. Someone described them as a senior drunk programmers that don't listen really well. Um, that's okay. I think I've seen senior drunk programmers. You can get a Balmer Peak and you can actually code pretty well. Um, Not some of these LLMs. They'll give you great answers, and sometimes, but the answers can be I don't know. They'll get lost. Like it is a great tool. It is not a thing that's replacing any humans
Hmm.
at scale anytime soon. I think.
So yeah, Anastasia kind of asks is when you test code generated by AI, how do you ensure it works correctly? Are you just literally auditing it? You're just taking a look at what it is, or do you have any kind of automatic test routines for AI generated stuff?
So um, what's really great about AI is LLMs is it allows you to do test driven development in a way that you have like people could talk about before, but like couldn't really do. I actually asked the AI to write a test before it ever does the task that it's going to respond to. Um, and then I validate that the test fails and fails in the way that I expect it to, right? So like if let's like use a hypothetical API, like say you need to post a document to an API. So you're posting a JSON form. I will have the AI write a test saying, hey, I am going to make a new API. I need to write a test for it, generate the test. And it's doing that inside my code base. So it already has a sense of how we write tests. It has that context. Um, and so is able to quickly write those tests. Then you make sure they fail, and then you go about trying to make them pass. Um, and using an LM to do that um, gives you a good running start. It's not the end all be all. You still got to go in and make sure it's done what you wanted, just like you would have to do if you asked a person
Yeah.
and you hired someone. Hey, can you go write this API for me? When it comes back, you need to accept it. You got to go through real testing and you do your normal process. And so Anastasia is just we run it through our normal software development process. And we're also honest about, hey, this was written by AI, so just keep that in mind, right? And it's been interesting. Like, there's been a lot of prodding that I needed to do to actually get my team to use it. And I think a part of it was me being comfortable with using it. Because I think it's like all these are great questions. These are like, why, like, how do you trust the AI code? How do you do all that? How do you trust any code? You read it and you try to run it. And that's why it's really scary, the vibe coding. And I've done this myself. Like I've lost 4 or 5 hours, made 10,000 lines of code, try to run it after that, and it doesn't work. Won't compile. It's something stupid, probably. You can ask the LLM to try to fix it, and maybe it will. But now you have 10,000 lines of code. There is no way for you to review it. And so, um, one of my favorite things to do is actually just throw away that 10,000 lines of code. As a professional developer, that's insane to me. Like, I spent 10,000 lines of code I'm just going to throw away. But when it was generated by this LLM, okay,
Yeah.
sure, start over. Uh,
So are
yeah,
the so are the
go ahead.
LLMs at least at this point in time, as a CTO, do they actually make your life better? Because at least when you hire a junior level coder, if you do the hiring process properly, you should have an idea of kind of like their culture, how they think about things, what they know. So even when you are auditing their code, you know what the fuck to look for. Whereas like with these LLMs, if they're just spitting out some random stuff, is that what you're talking about actually sounds like it's adding to your workload instead of subtracting from it.
Oh no, no. I think that's really interesting. Um, Software engineering, at least the way we practice it here at Pandium, it's a collaborative process,
Okay.
and um, someone has to spend time writing out that code. The time and being the owner of it and doing all like whether they're using AI or they're doing it by hand, whatever. Um, but there's always that review that comes in at the end of it, and so I think as long as you're doing it in discrete ways, and that vibe coding example where I spent 5 hours, like that wasn't something I could ever put up for pull review. I couldn't review it myself. So like I wasted time. What I needed to do if I was actually wanting to get this thing merged would have been to just do a discrete feature, get it up for review, and then pull it down. I find like as long as I keep the tasks small, it does provide a speed up.
Huh.
Um, it's definitely made us a little bit faster. It's not 10x. I
Yeah.
don't know who's getting 10x. There are people who are just who allow like Claude Code is the thing I personally use. They'll allow Claude Code to just like without any checks just run and do it itself, like constantly like try to build entire features, and they're just burning through tokens. And I don't understand that. That to me is like I don't know how you build software that scales when you're not even looking and reading the code. Because inevitably, when you get real users going on it, you're going to find that there's this one line of code somewhere that really breaks a lot of people. And to try to find that one line of code in like 10,000 lines of code that no one wrote on your team is much harder to do.
So do you limit it to like in the real world? Like when I think about using AI to write code, I would allow it to write a code block, like a loop, a function, a something. Is that about
Yes.
what you limit it to, or do you allow it to create five functions? Or like about how many lines of code do you trust AI with?
So to give an example, our integration generator, that generates right now between 80 and 200 lines of code for every time we write it. So I would say it's like one file, one module
A module. Okay.
would be my. You can write a couple functions
Yeah.
all in one shot with it for sure. And the important thing is get that merged, get it into your code base, get it used, and then using it as context for building the next feature, but sort of do it fresh.
Hmm.
That's the other thing. And this is probably like people who Claude Code. for now has unlimited mode, right? There's switch between the really super powerful model Opus and Sonnet. Sonnet is great. I don't know the difference between Opus and Sonnet for what I'm doing. And so when I run out of Opus credits and they switch to Sonnet, it allows me to just, I think this is really important. New context every time you do a new job.
Huh.
So you can have like you can have some overarching instructions that you've trained your LLM to use. I don't know how familiar everyone is here, but with Claude or Open API, Open AI's ChatGPT or Copilot, you can write cursor files, cursor rules, or they're now just like markdown files that the LLM knows to read automatically before it starts a process. And all it's doing is it's taking a series of sentences and it's turning it into a prompt that it uses before your prompt gets applied. And so you can explain to the code like, hey, we're a Python shop. We use PyTest. We use Fast API. The way we run Python code is using pipenv. Don't get me started on that. And so Claude knows every time it starts a new feature, these are like the certain guidelines it should do when I say, hey, I now need to add a new endpoint to this API.
Okay.
And so yeah, resetting the context, keeping it small to single file or a couple files.
Fair enough. And then so you use Claude Code, and I've heard everybody says Claude Code is wonderful. That is the one thing I've heard, and nobody's snarky about Claude Code for whatever reason. Have you used any of the other coding products? And is there any one of the questions we're getting from Christoph? Is it basically, is there any bad one out there? Like they say it'll code, but it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do.
I'm actually really interested in what Christoph means by cold fusion type coding. I haven't seen cold fusion in the wild since the late 90s. And I recall that being a script, so I'm not exactly sure. But is there any particular bad model? Not in our case. We actually tried, and we made this a part of our project to swap out different models.
Yeah.
We just landed on Claude because it had the best results on our on what we were trying to do. But that was tested like 3, 4 months ago. I think it's something that is continuously evolving. Everyone everyone out there is talking about Gemini 2.5 as being amazing. And so I think like Google came out with their own CLI, which is Claude Code is in itself is not a chat LLM. It's interfacing with LLMs, but it's a piece of software that also knows how to like. It's really fascinating. It like divides up a task, and it's probably prompting its whole way there, but it knows, hey, you asked me to add a new feature, so the first thing I should do is look at the code in that code base. And so you'll see Claude like go and do a grep into your code and like say I'm adding a new orders endpoint or something. I don't know. It's going to go look for orders endpoints in my code before it even attempts to do the job. So it's like has this ability to build its own context in a really smart way. And so I don't know what to, I guess agentic, I don't know what to call that class of CLI, but there are a few of them. Claude Code was, I think, the first, or at least the first one that got a lot of power. And for me, programming using that tool is really awesome. There are other ones out there. There's Charm is something that I've recently learned about. That one supposedly can work with any model. You can get Claude Code to work with any model if you use this thing called Open Wrapper to sort of like proxy what Claude Code thinks it's talking to. And so you can have it actually talk to ChatGPT and all that stuff. And then Google CLI, that's supposed to be open source and talk to any model. But that's the one that people would use for Gemini, for example. And what's different is versus an IDE. So to take this back, so an IDE, an integrated development environment. Yeah. There are programmers out there who are all about just using like TextPad or Notepad if you're using Windows or VI or Emacs, super low. They're just about writing characters. They have very little. They don't do anything to help you write code beyond like literally letting you write the code. They're not like pulling in extra information or doing cool refactoring. An IDE is a tool that allows like it's more advanced text editor for writing code. What I find that doesn't work is allowing the AI to be embedded in an IDE. I actually like it working with text files outside of my IDE. Um, I think it's a matter of so I'm like talking about VS Code or and using Copilot or
So you don't use it inside VS Code,
I
really?
don't like it inside VS Code. Um,
Okay.
it's slow. I don't think the interface has the UX, the user experience has been really fleshed out yet. Like everyone's just trying to add AI into their products, but they're not doing it in a way. So like something that's really common for me. Hey, I want to rename a variable. Um, has become harder in IDEs now because every time I right click, they want to throw the AI response at me. And I'm like, no, the thing I need to do is deterministic. I don't need an AI to rename a variable and maybe mess up one of them. I just need to do a grep replace.
Mm.
Um, and so one of the things I've noticed with all these IEs that I've tried, so I'm a big into the JetBrains ecosystem. So particularly I use PyCharm and Golang, but we have team members using VS Code. We have people using um, what's the third one? We had someone try Cursor and they rage quit using it.
Okay.
Claude Code is the one that's been sticking, the CLI based tool. Yeah, everyone at my company that's decided to use AI is currently using it. It seems like.
Oh,
Uh, yeah,
cool. And then with that, so topically, as far as tech drama goes, apparently Anthropic is beating the hell out of the Claude users, where they now have the timeouts, the block. So there's like the 60 minute or whatever, which is whatever, and then they have 5 hour, but now they have a 7 fucking day. You ever heard this one?
that's new for me.
Oh, so you haven't from a
I have
practical.
not run into that. I'm not, I guess, in the top 5% of people. That said, this is going into areas that I don't know too much about, but like there is a huge cost to running these models, and unlimited is not going to be a thing that you get to keep forever. But I don't see people also paying per token, so it's really interesting. It's sort of like cell phones, right? Like when they first came out, you're now everyone's unlimited, but like it used to be every text you had to pay for. Um, is the technology going to allow it to become something that it's like the demand lowers enough that they're able to allow open usage, or is it something we're never going to catch up on? A really scary stat to me is we're about to open up power generation in Wyoming as a country. Like that's 5 times the amount of Wyoming's like consumer electricity. It's just so AI GPU servers can live out there and just suck up energy. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's some weird economics going on. I'll say that. Do I? So to answer your question directly, I understand where Anthropic is coming from. It has not bothered me directly. I should ask my engineers if they've seen it. I do see it switch from Opus to Sonnet, but like I can't tell the difference. So
Okay.
it's a little bit. It's actually too thoughtful with Opus. So I really like Sonnet. My next thing is and sorry if I'm rambling here, um, but there's open source models
Yeah.
that you can run yourself. The problem is you need to have the GPU to do it. Um, some of the open source models are approaching Sonnet level in terms of people being happy with them. So I'd be interested to see if, like, I ran it myself, how much it would cost on GCP to have a 96 gigabyte GPU server, which is ridiculous. I can only imagine the money I'm burning just thinking about it out loud. But like that's what you need to power some of these like same models at scale if you want that speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fair enough. So are you worried at all? So there's all these new models coming out again. You talk about Opus, Sonnet. OpenAI, yeah, I think today released their open weights model,
Yes.
two of them.
Right.
One of the things, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting fucking old. Dude, I can't keep up with all this shit. Like, they're just like every other day, and there's a whole nother set of charts that I don't know what to do with. So, again, you're a CTO. So, like, what has to happen for you to basically open up another LLM and give it a try? Like, what's the pain point to be like, oh, let me try this one and see if it's better.
I think I haven't had to do this lately. I think it's gonna be when like they turn off the spigot and you're just like $100 a month is not enough anymore to like get unlimited usage. That's what Claude Max is, right? If you're using Claude Code, you have to use their unlimited plan, which they're limiting, and it's literally just paying $100 a month. And for me, just being able to say $100 a month versus like having to count the number of tokens
Mhm.
is that helps with my cognitive load. Um, because as CTO, you can worry about a lot of things, but only some of them actually really matter. And so when you have seven figures of revenue, it doesn't really matter $100 or $1,000 a month, unfortunately. Um, but like if like, oh man, running the integration generator is about to cost us $1,000 a month. Right now it's pennies. But if it started to hit that number, that's when I'll be like, let me think about what we need to do to switch off, just like I do with any of our services.
Yeah,
But there's a point where it's like the utility of a thing is way worth more than the cost.
yeah,
Um, and so if I could pay, for example, Google to manage my Kubernetes cluster so I don't have to worry about those master nodes anymore, and it's like $1,000 a cluster, great, let's do that. Because that's like a person I don't have to hire, or actually three. So it's making those type of trade offs, like how much labor savings versus investment time and cost that something will give you.
fair enough. So, like, when you're thinking about that as a CTO, so you're a seven-figure company, because like one of the issues I have with my students is like they think like a MacBook Pro is expensive. They're like, oh my golly, you spent three, and I keep trying to tell them in our world that whatever. So, like $200 a month on Claude Code or whatever. What price point practically for you would send up a flag? Would be $500 a month, $1,000 a month?
I think it's approaching 1,000 is like, ooh, um, we, it's actually lower. Like, well, it's also interesting, right? So, am I spending $100,000? Not $100,000. That's definitely. Am I spending $100 a month so that my programmers can be 25% faster? Like, if I'm paying those programmers $10,000 a month, and I can make them 25% faster by spending an extra 100, like, so I really think it's like, yeah, there's definitely a number. It's probably 1,000. It's probably 500 if I'm being honest. But like, if I can look at that $500 number and say, oh wow, this is actually saving me, or the production of this person is X better because of this, or I'm now able to sell my services for more because I'm now offering something new. Um, in any, and I'll say this just out loud, it's not necessarily common, but like businesses sell things to businesses. You should try to get 100% markup on on the things that you are selling. Like that is a very good and logical number to try to hit. And so if it's costing me $100 a month, if I could turn that into $1,000 a month, hell yeah, easy.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. Do you have those numbers though? I think it was interesting. I was at a meetup recently
Mm.
and I was overhearing two people and they were talking about the reason that bosses hate work from home is that the bosses don't actually know what the hell their own KPIs are. And so, like, so when we talk about things like this, like with money, like, and again, just as a real executive, like, is this as mathematical as people want it to be, or is it kind of more just a gut, like, that feels good, that seems too high?
It's a combination. Um, to address the manager thing, so since COVID, we went 100% remote. We already had some remote people that were 100% before, and managing in a remote world is I it shouldn't be any harder than it is in the real world. I think like those managers are ineffective. And to your point, they don't know what their own KPIs are because maybe they don't have any, right? Like it's for us, we do track number of tickets that we're closing, and um, it's slightly up. So like I don't know if that's because of AI or not.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just because we're more experienced as a team every day. Like eight of us are 8 more days tenured. But like um the the yeah, it is a gut feeling a lot of the time, especially at the smaller size. I think like if we had at bigger companies, there's CFOs, people who are dedicated, chief financial officers who are really dedicated to looking at these numbers. One of our mutual friends, Ben, I know Ben O'Connor. He's a CFO who is really into AI, and he has actually remarkable numbers when it comes to productivity of his engineers because he's like doing some really cool stuff with regard to accounting for that. And so you can get highly quantified. I will say that. I think a lot of it, though, I'm not going to lie, it's not 100%.
Okay, fair enough. Then just a couple questions on these AI models from Jock, Docfully. Just when you are writing code, just so people have an idea about how much of it is bad. Like how often do you get 100% good code, or is it like small problems?
It's a process. So one of the things that our integration generator does is it's just doing, I don't know if it's zero shot or one shot. I don't know what to call it, but basically we generate a prompt, say, hey, we want to build an integration between ShipBob and ActiveCampaign, and we want to take orders from ActiveCampaign and put them into ShipBob. We have a form where you're able to put this, you're able to encode that information. You're not typing it as a prompt. The prompt is managed by us. And then once we've assembled the prompt and all the context that's necessary, we will throw it at the LLM. Hey, go and write us this integration, or go and write us this file that fits in an integration. And it'll come back with a response. And what we immediately do is try to compile it, like just compile it. If that fails, then tell the LM to try again and give it the compilation error. Yeah. We have that cycle step 3 times, and if at the end it fails, it just says I give up, and we don't return that code from the integration generator. We return the other 99% of it, which includes all the scaffolding that allows you to run an integration on Pandium. It does all the rate limiting, it does all the type checks and all that stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, so using that as a model, we have a benchmark that we run where we do 10 of these flows across different systems, and we just see what's the result. And so right now, we're running around 85% on single, on like asking the question, hey, can you make me this integration? Yeah. 85% of the time, we have running code that is correct. The other 15% of the time, we have to just degrade and say no. So yeah, that's about where I'm at. And that's like any process where we're measuring it. Like when I'm doing code day to day, some of like Claude will go and generate a whole series of functions and then ask you, hey, do you want me to write this to file? And I'll like review that and be like, no. Did it do something wrong? Or did it just do something that I didn't anticipate in my prompt? Like just with any person, right? Like was the code factually wrong versus no, it had the right idea. I just didn't explain myself right. Or it did a different approach than I would have done. Used recursion instead of a for loop or something silly like that. I don't find it, at least lately, I don't find it particularly, the hallucinations are less, but when they do happen, they can be more catastrophic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, then the next question, again coming from Jock, Docfully, is so if speed wasn't a factor and many other things, as a CTO, so one of the big things now, especially with 18-year-olds, they're like, screw OpenAI, screw Claude, I'm going to use Olama and run my own open weights
Oh,
source model. So like, but from a CTO's position, do you actually want to deal with an open source model yourself ever, or would you just pay somebody to be running whatever they're running?
um, so personally, I would love to talk to those 18-year-olds because um, my experience with 18-year-olds is like they're really AI skeptics and don't want to get anywhere near it. And if someone's trying to run their own model, that's super cool. Those guys are going to have jobs for the rest of their lives. Um, the To answer your question, we're paying Anthropic right now. We could try to do it ourselves. The the cost benefit analysis comes down to, is it cheaper to just pay by the token or whatever service we're using, um, or have someone invest the time to like stand up and learn how to run a local model and then deploy it to the into our GCP and then do all the work to get the communication up and running. And um, it's really about that. And so that goes back to your earlier thing. I think like if we started to pay closer to $1,000 a month for a service like this, I would be like, hey, let's like look at what the cost would be if we were hosting this ourselves, because
Hmm.
that seems really high. Uh, yeah, I think that's really it. Personally, like I want to do this myself. I want to set up a local server, get Olama running at full power, or whatever open model there is now, and like feed it my personal data. Because the big thing with any of these service providers is they're logging every single thing. Open AI is legally required now to keep every single chat
Yeah, yeah.
because of New York Times. And so suing them, don't put personal information in there. Don't put anything you're embarrassed about in there. Um, I'm not actually too worried about code. They've already ripped all the code from the internet, and they can have my code. It's nothing special. Like it's I'm sorry. That like went on a little ramble. But I think if you're 18-year-old and you want to do that, you should totally do it. I think it's a great experience. Spend the time. You're going to learn how to run a service, whether it's a model or any other piece of software. And
Well, but I'm
that's
thinking,
how I got started. It's just tinkering. Go ahead, Eli.
but that's what I'm more thinking about, like from your executive position, like what I always try to tell my students is, do I want to worry about my CPU fan burning out, which I've seen in servers? Like your entire fucking systems go down because the one wire to the CPU fan is just a little too close, cuts it out, and everything goes to hell. Like, do you as a CTO want to take on that level of responsibility? I mean, do you feel comfortable with that?
Um, I started in network operations when DevOps was called knock.
Yeah.
Um, so do I personally want to deal with that? It's actually a discussion we've talked about. Cloud spend. Remember when I say that 100% margin or thousand, whatever it is?
Yeah,
Um, like we're spending. This is an open number, so we're spending our over $10,000 a month on GCP or AWS, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
That is still less than they would cost the salary of one DevOps engineer.
yeah, yeah.
If I had the 5 engineers who could be on call 24/7, salary baked in to my cost of the cloud, I think that's when I'm seriously considering, hey, we're going to do server farms and do this ourselves. But I think, especially early on when you're a startup and you're just getting those first customers, it really doesn't matter. You should do whatever's easiest and get those customers in there. Get that proof that the thing you're solving is actually something people are willing to pay for. You'll invest in the tech debt afterward,
No,
which
no.
is it's an interesting phenomenon if we're going to get into this. So one of the things that CTOs are worried about now in the startup space is that they're not needed anymore, especially in this very beginning.
Yeah.
You have all these CEOs now, these single person proprietorships who are just vibe coding their way into building an application. And you know what? If you can get people to pay for that, that's great. You're still going to need a programmer to come in later because that code is not going to scale. But it doesn't always need to scale, right? You can, as long as you can spend less money than it brings in. You're doing the right thing in the capitalist sense.
I suppose so. I mean, do you actually think the exec CEOs will try to get rid of like the CTOs? Because there was that one guy who vibe coded and was, I think he was using Claude, and then he started crying because literally Claude like destroyed his production database. And you're like, why? Why did Claude?
Well, let's go into that guy's story, right? It's a ridiculous story. Why was Claude having access to production? But also, he just vibe coded that the week before.
Yeah.
So when it deleted his production database, it was his vibe coded production database. How many users did he actually have? Like, so is that a great example? No. Do you want to give LLMs unfettered access to your computer? No. Would you give a person unfettered access to your, like another person, like root access to your computer? No. You should definitely be watching it and um, putting guardrails. And that's a big part of what we talk about with our integration generator. It's like we're not allowing our users to do the full prompt. We want to put in guardrails because we know our prompt engineering is going to get success in a way that you're not going to get because we have tools to measure it and we're like actually running benchmarks and um yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so then talking about AI, so you actually try to deploy, or you have deployed, because we've been
We have
talking
deployed.
about
It's out in the wild.
that you have. Okay, so what? So okay, so what project have you actually used AI with in your infrastructure, and kind of walk us through what that was?
Oh. Um are you talking about the integration generator or are you just talking about in general?
I think it might be the integration generator. I don't know.
Okay.
When you
Well,
put
because there's like
AI in
I've been using
production,
AI for the last 2 years to help write code, right? So I have features that I've written using Claude Code that are 90% written by Claude Code. And then I go in and just do the review and change up a little bit, or I'll have it rewrite. The integration generator itself is this project that allows we have different users. We have the customer's customer, we have our customers, and then we have our customers' engineers. They're the ones who are writing the integrations. And so what the integration generator does is it simply packages up and turns into a really simple starter script, application script, an integration that will run on Pandium. An integration on Pandium just needs to have like the ability to execute some code and this thing we call the Pandium config file. If you know anything about a Heroku, it looks a lot like a proc file. It's just something that describes in metadata what the integration is going to do, the name of it, the configuration variables it needs, the secrets that you're going to want. You put that all into this configuration file. You put code that responds to Pandium in a certain way by reading the environment and then running. Uh, what this integration generator does is it gives you that entire package to start. So like, hey, I want to write an integration between these two different systems, and then you hit go. It throws it right into your source control repository. The thing that where AI comes in is on the individual mapping. So I don't want to like it's weird because like to me this doesn't actually seem that hard, but just giving this people a start where we're giving them an actual hey, here is an object that's actually moving, here's a function that does a transform, and then here's a function that loops through the API and pushes those objects. Just giving them that start it gives people a lot of confidence that they can flesh out the rest of the integration from there. Like it's just 80 lines of code, but it's like 80 lines of code that you don't have to write and think of, and the cognitive load, and you have a pattern. And I think that's really the cool part. You have a pattern that you're able to use. And so doing that mapping when we first started 2 years ago was not possible. We wanted it to actually write the entire integration. And so all the code, there would be nothing that we pre-generated. And when we tried that on those first models, it was horrific. We actually, and someone asked about interview process or like employees. One of the things we tested was we have a interview question, and I don't even mind saying it out loud. It's an integration between Twitter and HubSpot, and we ask you to write it. You have 4 hours. You're in a room like this, and the goal is not actually to see the code you output. It's just to see like how you think and like why you did certain things. We used that test 2 years ago on open ChatGPT, and it failed miserably. Like it would have not passed. You do it now, and it's really hard to say I would flunk this person. Just purely code, right? If you're gonna present code like that in an interview, you better be able to explain it. That's like where it comes in. And so if you are writing a perfect integration, great. You spent your time, you were productive. Now explain all the code to us. The reason I bring up this interview question is just to say that we use that as our basis to see originally, like, is this something we can do? Did not work. We came up with a much tighter problem where it's like, hey, instead of trying to do the entire integration, what if you just literally did the JSON object transform? So an object, an order in one piece of software, so let's say ShipBob, has a different shape, JSON shape, than an order in ShipBob. I'm sorry, in Shopify, just to use different examples. And so can we have an LM do that mapping? And we even made it simpler. This again, this is like 2 years ago, and this is like a part of this whole process. We said, you know what, JSON attributes, you can think of as like, if you flatten it all out, say you have a complex deep object, you have an object and an object and an object, you can flatten that all out and make what's called JSON path, which is just like addresses. And so like you have the root object. Let's use like a sales order as an example. So you have a sales order object. One of the sub objects that you'll see on almost every sales order is a customer, because that is, and that's a whole object. And then a customer almost always invariably has an address as another JSON object. So you have this 3 deep JSON object. What we did was we took that order from ShipBob, listed out all these properties, and made just strings of saying like order.customer.address.street1 or order.order ID, right? Like that's a top level one. And then we said, hey, we did that for Shopify, and then we did that same transformation for ShipBob or whoever else. And then we were like, hey, LLM, just try to match these strings. It's not even an LLM at that point. It's like really basic language processing, just like NLP. That's what all the, right? That only got us 70% of the way there, and it didn't give us any of the actual objects, and it was just a disaster. So what we ended up realizing and all that is like when we got to that tight problem, we realized the rest of the integration though is like stuff we could just pre-generate. So like the API client, the thing that interfaces with the REST API and does it in a type safe way. If you go and read an API doc and slurp it into a system without getting, yeah, why not? You guys are all technical. There's these, so APIs, there's, I don't know how many people here know about Swagger or Open API. It's a JSON schema for defining RESTful APIs. And when you build using something like Fast API or any modern API framework, you automatically get these documents generated. And it's really great for generating documentation. There's a lot of problems with the standard, and you got to do a lot of hand fixing and handcrafting. But once you take those files, you can use that to generate an API client where it will know every single type. It will know how to handle authentication. It will know how to do various things. You have to go in and hand edit this stuff, and that's what we were doing with our API clients. But once you have that, you have a really nice piece of software for writing integrations to an API, an SDK, so to speak, a software development kit, and it's all type safe, which is actually really important for. It makes a lot of integration errors go away if you just use a basic type safety. So what's my point here? All that work can be done ahead of time. You can even use an LLM a little bit to help you build those clients. Yeah. But once that client is done and you validated that it works across the API, you don't have to regenerate it all the time. And you can just supply it. And it takes 2 or 3 days of work to get that working, but you give that to your customer, and now they don't have to ever think about any of that anymore. They're just thinking about the business logic. Yeah. And so it's about using the LLM where it's helpful and not using it where it will it's just going to slow you down or add noise.
So in that example though, it sounds like you took out the LLM.
Yes, I did. We took out the LLM.
Okay.
But we built a tool that's useful, that's AI actual powered, as opposed to you don't have to use an LLM just for the sake of an LLM, which was really interesting. So did you go to the first AI in production, the one last year?
That's that one.
So there were a couple talks like this where people would have APIs that responded directly from the LLM. So like they didn't write code to structure their JSON response. Like say I'm building an order API. They would have the LLM always return whatever it hallucinated as an order object. And like they're building software for the sake of building software where the LLM was doing all the black magic. And it was just like talking to itself, I guess, in different ways. And like I go to the person, I'm like, but this can't scale. This is not going to work. It's not deterministic. He's like, that's not the point. And I'm like, well, then what's the point? I don't understand. We're making software that's supposed to move data back and forth. I think just to like zoom out, use the tool where it's useful. Don't use a tool just because it exists. And so like there are all these companies now that are like, I'm going to add an MCP server to my platform. And you're like, why? Yeah. And they can't explain it. They're just like, it's because. So the LMs can talk to it. But why do you want an LM to talk to your, what are you trying to do? And it's like, I don't know. This is just me being a skeptic on all the hype in general, not like AI in particular. Like, it's the same thing where, like 5 years ago, it's still huge, but everyone was building on the blockchain. And you're like, cool. Why? Why do you need a Hoffman tree, a distributed Hoffman tree? Like, that's cool. Yeah, it's a ledger. It keeps audited track. We have systems that have been keeping audited track now for, decades. Yeah. It's all about, we need to add blockchain or something. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Okay, fair enough. So then going back then, okay, so you were playing with LLM. You couldn't even get LLM to deal with key value.
We couldn't get the LLM to work. Yeah, it sucked.
And so, okay, so the new thing, so basically you've created essentially the README files for all your APIs, and then you just auto read that, dump that into the file that you give the engineers. So, okay, so at this point,
it's we auto-generate the clients. So they're NPM installing those. They're like packages that just exist in NPM. And we're giving them like the basic, hey, here's your main file, the index.js, because it's all TypeScript, so index.ts. And then we're actually, if the LM succeeds, we will give them another module where the actual process logic happens. So it's where the order transformation in my example that I've been talking about happens. So literally code that
So go back.
changes one. Yeah.
So okay, so we have the description of the APIs. So where is the LLM in this? That's what I'm trying to figure out is where is the
Oh, okay, yeah.
API?
The LLM is used to help make a deterministic TypeScript library of that description.
Okay.
But it's not used after that. Once the library is made, it's done, right? It's just a piece of software
Uh,
that
I see. So it's
uh
basically, so it's just so a JSON-y type. So basically key value pairs is what it's creating,
if
or
you it's creating a TypeScript API library. So say you have a RESTful API that has 10 endpoints
yeah,
and maybe like 20 objects.
yeah,
What the client is a really nice way of hitting those endpoints. So like using ShipBob as an example, you can use the ShipBob client to go shipbob.list orders. And then the orders that are coming back from that list, that from that method call, are actually typed orders, type safe, TypeScript orders that you could then like do manipulations on, and you didn't have to write any of that code. And the LM helped us generate it, but it's not like being used in that process. Where the LM is actively being used by the end user is in the code that says, "Hey, I want to take a ShipBob order and make it into another company's order or another company's product or another like using another API." That's where it's actively being used by our engineering users, and that's where we one shot it.
okay. And then that, in order to get it to the point where that works, was that your engineering brilliance, or did they come out with just a better version that finally did what the hell it was supposed to do?
It's not my engineering brilliance; it's my team's, but it was both, right? So, getting back to that example of that interview question, we already realized that we could provide a lot of the value of the integration generator without an LLM. I
Yeah.
think that's your point.
Yeah.
Most of the value of this thing is not the
Okay.
LLM. But when we went back, and this was after the last AI in production last year, I mean, I saw the cool stuff people were building and the beginnings of what we now call agentic programming and like having the LM like pass itself off and do all these workflows. And it made me curious. So we reran that Twitter to HubSpot integration on the latest models at the time. I think 4.0 was out and Claude and Sonnet had just dropped, or Sonnet had just dropped. That was the best one for Anthropic. And it did a pretty good job. It did a pretty good job. Um, and we're like, okay, let's try this again. We already did all this work. We don't need the LLM to generate any of this stuff,
Yeah.
but maybe you can just do the mapping that we initially like is this cognitive load for engineers sometimes. Hey, the simple business logic of just changing an order from one object to another, it's worked 85% of the time without a human having to say anything to it, and it's enough. We want to make it better. We want to make it do more interesting patterns, and that's what we're iterating on currently. It's our next phase. We also want to make it so that these clients can be generated faster. It takes 2 to 3 days. Maybe there's an LLM as a part of that process where it's like, hey, LLM, you go and test this API, and here's how it's described. Give us a report, or something like that. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. And then, so with the AI thing going beyond that, so the current sexy thing is is agentic AI. And it was
Yes,
interesting because I asked you this question, and honestly, I thought it was a fucking no-brainer. I thought, you know how you ask questions and you think you know what the answer is going to be, and then somebody says something else. So
sure.
you're already an integrations company. You're already doing this type of stuff. I just assumed you would be jumping into this agent world, and you said you're not. So why? Like that seems so synergistic. Like no brainer. Like no, like of course you are. Like why are you not that interested in like agentic AI? because you've already got the customers, you've already got the a synergistic, engineer, all that, yeah.
Yeah, no. So the integration generator itself is very agentic. It's a whole, like it by definition. Um, the the reason, and I think what you're really saying is like around MCP servers and like being really forward with that type of. So just to zoom out, and I was just talking about this with my co-founder earlier today, and we get asked this question a lot. What do you guys think of MCPs as integrations? Like using MCP as an integration pattern? And what I say is MCP servers are great for exploration and analytics. So, hey, what were my sales numbers yesterday? Or what is my customers, where is my ship bob order in our system or something, right? It's asking questions about retrieving information. It's not great for, hey, every hour on the hour, I need you to take orders from this system and put it into that system.
Hmm.
And the reason it's not great at that is one, there's no real built-in task manager in these LLMs. You need something to tell it to do these things. Two, it's going to hallucinate. Like no matter how great it's going to be, it's in some ways asking. It is actually like this. It's literally like asking someone, "Hey, log into this system, and then read that data, and then type it into this new system." When you're using an MCP server or an LLM to like move data across, that's actually what's happening. The data is being read, and then it's not automatically piped into the other side. It's being reinterpreted, and then predictively, this is what should be in the next system, right? A human, I used to do that job. When I really first started, I automated it away. But my entire job was taking data from financial companies. They were selling bonds, and I needed to type it into a database. And I was like, they're sending us Excel files. Why am I hand typing anything? And that's why we eventually automated that. But like, yeah, asking an MCP server is like asking a bunch of interns to just hand type between the two things. But it's great for like, hey, give me that sales report. Get me what the current ask price is. Get me. I would love. I think it's interesting to build playwright scripts with. There's this MCPC server. So let me just take a step back. Playwright is a piece of software that by Microsoft that allows you to automate web browser actions. And so it's really useful in what we call end-to-end testing. I want someone to log into my platform, click around in a certain order, and observe the result. I find writing things like that where it's like exploration, there's not like you have to like figure out which elements and stuff. Like it's just easier for it to like auto magically, hey, this is what I think, and then you go and try it, um and that's like really hardcore integration if you think about it. But anyway, yeah. So MCPs. The other thing I'll say is MCP is a protocol. You could write integrations using MCP, but it's not what we're talking about when people are talking about MCP. It's something that an LM's supposed to use, but it's actually highly regular and could be used if you wanted to as like a REST API replacement or GraphQL. It's all the same thing. Like, I don't want people getting confused about that stuff.
But like, why don't you want Pandium like getting in the world of selling agent, like having this as part of your
I'm not. It's just well, one, it's not about why are we not getting into the agentic stuff? It's we want deterministic data transfers, and agentic doesn't necessarily get you that.
That's interesting. Okay. So like when you think about like when you sell your that's a whole like I'm the Uber for dog dating or whatever. You're like we're deterministic data. That's the
I mean, it's a good question, to be honest. And to say like we're never going to do MCP, it's something we talk about. Again, it just goes to like if it's useful.
okay.
And we have not articulated that to ourselves yet. it sounds like, oh yeah, if you're agentic, you should be all about integrations. But like again, I need someone to tell me it's useful, and like I, I still don't have the use cases, at least in what we're dealing with, B2B software. I think there's some interesting analytics. Hey, we're in order go, but then there's also a whole bunch of, and this is the other side of it. And now just saying it out loud, it's making me articulate it better. There's data governance issues, right? Like, is it okay for some random LLM to just crawl our customers' data? Um, I personally say no, but should we sell such a service? Should we enable that? I don't know. Like that's again getting back to like, am I a true capitalist or not? But yeah, I just haven't been sold on it, Eli. That's really the answer.
All right, fair enough. So you have significant investors, but you also have significant annual recurring revenue. With the whole AI thing, like everybody's getting into the AI space. Do you still have to play? I mean, you always have to placate your investors, but do you still really have to placate your investors? And have they pushed you folks for AI? Like, are they asking you why the hell aren't you making some kind of AI play?
Well, again, we have made a huge AI play with this AI generator.
Yeah.
We just haven't gone fully into like the MCP world. Um, and no, they haven't really been. They've been talking about it for 2 years, and like building out this integration generator has been the response of that. Um, I wouldn't say we were pushed particularly by them. It was more like it's where the industry is going and what everyone is doing, and like so there's some of that, right? I got to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, but um, not any particular in our case investor pressure. They 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 invested in an integration infrastructure company.
Yeah.
They sort of this is boring stuff. If we were open AI, I'm sure they would be. It would be a different case, or if we were the tugboat captains. Yeah, Uber for tugboat captains. That would be a fun one. Uber for tugboat captains. Uh,
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you find investors? So, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like they talk about there was an iced tea company that changed into blockchain like 5 years ago and made a lot of money from investors. How did you find boring investors? Because all we hear right now is you have to do it. Like if you're gonna do a startup, it has to be AI because that's the only damn thing investors want. And you're like, your investors are like, integrations, we're good. Like how?
um, it is not my primary job, but it is a slog. It is harder than sales in some ways. Like you have to ask 100 people before you get even like there's a funnel of all this, right? And it's just a matter of like going out there, going on a roadshow, and trying to get people excited in your idea. And there are people who are excited about integrations out there. There's real money. Um, to give you an example, when we started, the big news was MuleSoft was just acquired by Salesforce. MuleSoft, 20-year incumbent in the space, 30 year, yeah, 20 years then maybe. Now maybe 30. They're really about low code integration platform. And so you're drag and dropping and you're doing all this thing with shapes and drawing. Don't get me started. They sold to Salesforce for $4 billion. So when you talk about numbers like that, and this was 10 years ago, um, that's how you get investors excited.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So one of the questions here, I think this is kind of interesting, especially since you have employees from Christoph. And so like going with the whole agentic thing, do you have enough staff to do kind of like moonshot projects or do exploration? Because like, some of these companies, they've got a quarter of their staff are doing God knows what, just playing. So you got nine technical employees. If there's a project you're curious in, but you don't know if it's actually going to bring you revenue, do you have enough staff to actually task them with something to create like an MVP?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of prioritization, right? The way the integration generator started was a moonshot. It was two of them for us, right? We said, hey, uh, you over there, sir, you are our closest person to like maybe understanding this. Please go spend 3 months and come back and see what we find. It's not like totally 3 months. You're like, he's not on his own, right? It's every day. We're working together. We're trying to do that. But it's something we really we're passionate about. And I think if there's something that will, in me and Christina's mind, move the needle and get us, uh, you know, more business or is a really good idea for like getting integrations off the ground, we're happy to fund moonshots. And they don't always work out. They don't. But in this case, it's been doing okay. We've been getting a lot of it's interesting. We've relived a lot of sales calls just by saying, "Hey, now we have AI involved," and then they get in there and they're not really caring so much about that. But anyway, it moonshots are really important. It's important to carve out the time for them. We do not have just like a dedicated team. We're not Google. Google has a whole company that's just called Moonshot, right, or something like that. That'd be cool to do one day.
Oh, fair enough. From Anastasia, she asks, so your competitors, do you have real competitors?
Yes.
How do you keep up with them, or do you really care what they're doing?
We care, and like to get to your question earlier, the ones that we care deeply about, they went full in on agentic. Like their entire marketing changed.
Mm.
The one in particular, and we haven't seen anything resonate with them. Like we're not losing deals to them since this big thing, and it's like I think. Like agentic for the sake of agentic is sort of one of those hypey things. Like there has to be a purpose, and but yeah, to answer directly in the question, we definitely have competitors. A lot of them started up after us, and in my view, copied a lot of what we've done. Um, but it is what it is, right? Like it is a free market, and like people should be out there. When we started this, me and Christina, we actually looked for Pandium. We wanted to build actually a consultancy on top of an integration platform that we were happy to use. And it was not finding it that drove us to actually build Pandium. And so I'm honored, like there's like more of these platforms now that really are more, they're a little bit more ergonomic for developers. They're not fully ergonomic. I think our biggest differentiator is the fact that we're not low code. We are code first. So there is no graphical interface where you're literally dragging shapes around and saying, I'm taking a source. That source is QuickBooks. For each object that comes out of this source, I'm going to do a loop, and you're like drawing the loop, and then you're putting a box for an if statement, and each branch has a different path that you're following, and so you end up building these like really complex workflow diagrams that, as a software engineer, are impossible to do any of your normal software development practices on. Yeah. So, like instead of doing code review, you have to do art review. I don't know what else to call it. Like you're looking at a drawing and you're discussing if you drew the right if statement or something. And so, that said, a lot of them also now offer coding on the side, and like that's good. I think that helps the entire integration space grow. But it's a never-ending battle. I mean, we've been out here 8 years, 9 years. We're still fighting.
So you talking about integration space. Like, how big is this? Like, how many competitors do you have, do you figure?
Ones that I like directly keep track of actively are scale or bigger. There's probably at least 6 or 7. Okay. But there's tons of these. Like, I'm not counting Zapier, for example. Like they're not a direct competitor, even though they're in the integration space. And man, I wish I was Zapier. But like, again, it's all about low code. It's about the citizen integrator doing this thing on their own. It's not about providing these little applets. The other big problem, and then I'll get off the low code thing, is when you have to do these low code integrations, you're redoing work that someone's already done. Um, when you're making an integration for yourself between your QuickBooks system and maybe your ShipBob, and you're using Zapier to do that, I guarantee you there are 100 other people who have already done that, and they're doing exactly the same mapping. And like that's the part I don't get. It's like there's no reuse, there's no ability to share. There's it just becomes this thing you have to do over and over again. And with code, you just write it once. You just codify, put it in a contract. Hey, this is my mapping. And then if it needs to change, you could do like actual reviews and like see the differences. And yeah, low code sucks.
You don't like low code. Fair enough. So, final question then in the AI space that I'm kind of interested in. So, however anybody here feels about AI, we are in a boom cycle, just like we had the dot-com boom, just like we had the like software as a service boom. So, a lot of these businesses are simply going to die. I'm not saying they all are going to die, but a lot of them are going to die horrible deaths. So, since you're integrating some of this AI stuff into your platform and into your workflows, how do you do risk mitigation to try to keep from depending on something that might disappear tomorrow?
That's a great question. So one, you build your systems in a way that you think about replacements. So like we've talked about this a few times already. Like we're built on GCP. When we first landed on GCP, I was very good about not leaning into using Google services that are like repackaged. I was like, no, we have to host it ourselves. We'll manage that. That became less so as time went on because sometimes you just got to get stuff done, and it's a lot faster to use someone else's message bus, for example. Um, the way you mitigate that risk is with contracts and working with big companies. Google's not a great example of this, but they cancel projects all the time. But they don't, and they haven't, knock on wood, ever canceled a project where someone's paying them.
Oh,
And so these are all built into contracts. So like when to give you to your example, people have to depend on us. We're a small SaaS, right? Like why would anyone want to be on us? Um, Relatively small. And so as a part of our contracts, we write in like, hey, if anything ever goes wrong, we will open source, we will give you uh or we'll give you an infinite license to the platform. We'll help you set it up and run it. This is if we could become insolvent. But that's something you could get into a contract negotiation with us and we'll happily sign it. You'll pay us a little bit extra for it. So there's that. If you really need to worry about it, it's called what I'm talking about is codex escrow, where you literally you can put your code, your GitHub, and you give access to a third party, and they're always just slurping it. Um, and then there's just sometimes you just gotta have faith, right? And if something's gonna go away or some service goes away, you roll with it. It doesn't happen so much with paid services, but you know where it happens a lot with is open source. So we were just talking about this.
yeah.
Vault changed to OpenBow, or Terraform is now OpenTofu, or hey, you can't use Redis anymore because I don't even know. You have to be ready to use different pieces of software. But luckily, a lot of the things are, I don't want to say plug and play. It's not like Legos, but like if you're using a key value store, it's easy to use a different one. There's some code that has to change, but you can replace a key value store. Same thing with these LMs. They're even if they all blew up, like they're open models now. Like we're gonna forever be able to run these ourselves. And I think as long as that exists, there's gonna be services. I just saw one, Olama.io. I think they just serve Olama models.
Oh,
You pay
really?
them. Yeah. So it's just models as a service. Um, yeah.
Cool. Then, since I've got you here, change the subject a little bit, just some other random questions I figure I'd ask. So, you live in Asheville, so I met you in Asheville. So, my wife and I, we moved to Asheville about 5 years ago, and we are about to bounce because Asheville now has the price of a major metropolitan area with the resources of a tiny mountain town. I mean, you are a startup founder and CTO, and how you've been in Asheville for a while. What's the value for being in Asheville for you, or is there? Do you just like being there?
I love Asheville. It's where I found my wife. It's where I found peace in the mountains. I come from New York City for the room. Born and raised, lived there all my life. And I moved to Asheville about over 3 years ago now. And it's just a very different experience. I found personally that it's calmed me and just helped me focus and be more, frankly, like reliable as a co-founder. And I found peace in the mountains. Yeah. And uh, I'm actually about to close on a house down in Hendersonville.
Okay.
So, like you, sort of moving out of Asheville. Asheville itself is very expensive. It's not as expensive as New York. Um, Hendersonville is the town just south of here, and it's starting to grow. And I'm really excited to really put down roots and really see what this area can be. The other thing I love about it is meeting people like you. Like there are tons of digital nomads out here who are living in the mountains and running their whole businesses out here, and it's really nice to be able to interact with them. We have meetups where we go, and I mean that's how we ran into each other. I think at a um, what is those things called that Hatch runs, the tea thing, um, the Wednesday like 9 a.m.
Oh,
TED Talks.
the 1 million cups. Which
1 million cups. 1 million cups. Sorry. And it's cool having that here. In New York, it can be almost overwhelming the amount of like tech scene there is and like the amount of things to do. And there's some focus here in Asheville. I don't know.
okay, so there is a value to because that's what I wonder is because so many people talk about like moving out to the mountains, and the question is, especially like say if you're co-founding like a startup company, like can you practically do it from some like place like that?
I was very lucky in that we already had 5 years, 6 years of like business, and um, we had already been remote for 2 or 3 years because of COVID. Like it became easy to do. The I don't imagine trying to start remotely.
Oh, no.
I don't know how like me and Christina being in the same room was really, really important. We lived out of her she has a beautiful home in Brooklyn, and she had an extra bedroom, and that was our office for the first 18 months of Pandium. And that and I just happened to live like 10-15 minute walk away. And so I think that was really, really important being there with your co-founder. I think it's less important once you're starting to scale. Like, um, she's busy doing her things, I'm busy doing my things. We don't have to be like, if we're both doing the same thing, we're actually wasting time for the company.
Fair enough. On that topic, so you've talked about so your entire company now is work from home. And again, in the tech world, what I always tell my students is hilarious is this whole paradigm like shifts every 5 years. Like one minute it's all telecommuting. Like I remember in 2010, everybody was into telecommuting. And then by 2015, everybody was into collisions. And then it was work from home, and now it's return to office. So with you and Pandium right now, like what I look at is if you have people that have somewhere between 3 to 5 years experience, as long as they're decent employees, they can definitely do work from home when I want to worry about it. But the question then becomes is what the hell about noobs? Like 22-year-olds or 18-year-olds, they just got their certificate or whatever. Like when you look at Pandium, so you got 13 employees now, if you tried to scale and grow, do you think work from home's, how far does work from home actually scale for you before you actually do start running into problems?
Um, it's a great question. So when we hire, we actually hire very junior engineers usually,
Hmm.
um, right out of boot camp or right out of college. Um, the one thing we do look for is someone who has had work experience, though.
No.
And so it doesn't have to be programming, though. It's
Uh,
just more like, hey, you know how to get out of bed. You know how to, like, you have some manager who will vouch for you. Um, and and then it's just a matter of having a really healthy and cohesive culture and so for example, we have daily meetings, daily stand-ups. Everyone has to show up. It's like camera on, we're all there, we're all just talking about yesterday's problem and today's problem. When we hire someone new, they immediately get an onboarding buddy.
huh.
This is a person that becomes their Tamagotchi. I don't know how many people remember that. But like anytime they have a question, they could go to their onboarding buddy and ask them anything about anything. And that onboarding buddy's job is to help that person. Like they could be busy putting out a fire. They shouldn't be. I should have put them in buddy duty. But my point is like, that's their primary role for the next month. Just be this person's like go to. And the idea is also we give people, we have really good ability now. It used to be where it was just a backlog, but our backlog's sort of disappearing um, of tickets where these are really good bugs that just take too much time to work on, but are probably one line changes. And if someone was to go in and do that, and that's a really great way of getting someone introduced to a code base. I don't care if you're senior, junior, mid level, whatever. Every place you go is going to do coding differently. And that first few weeks is learning how this particular shop makes code, or if we're using cooking as an example, like how do we cook in this restaurant? It's different from cooking in that restaurant. um, and so I think providing all that support. The other thing we look for is people who are curious, who are intellectually curious, and it's like it doesn't even have to be about tech, but it does help. um, but like the people who went through boot camps, those people, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are really, really deeply interested in what they've learned and what they're trying to do. They're not just doing it for the job. They're like, hey, I really want to get into computers. I used to be um, a reporter, but now I'm doing computers. And this person's on this call, so I hope it's okay to tell the story. But the thing that like attracted me so much about this programmer was that they were running their own what is it called, Android. They were using like Lineage OS on their phone, and so that's custom firmware. And this is a person who's doing it for, she's really into like EFF and just doing all that stuff, and was able to explain it deeply.
Yeah.
It had been something I had done 5 years earlier. And that's actually the biggest thing. Like, I just love talking to whoever we hire and just go into some topic deeply. I don't pretend I'm an expert in anything, but I can ask you questions, and I think I can like help see if you are an expert in something, right? And so it's really those three things. Have you had a job before? Do you have intellectual curiosity? And have you done something computer related lately, right? So boot camp, college, I programmed. We had one person who was an accountant originally, and they had built a macro to like automate a lot of their job, and they were able to talk about that. You are on board, right? Like we'll teach you how to write an integration. And then having a progression system. So like not everyone's going to be a top tier engineer, and that's okay. But having off ramps where, hey, you're going to be a great integration engineer, or hey, uh, you're going to be focused on this particular thing. I don't want to shit on any of our technology. I was about to say something crappy like front end engineer, which is such a very old school thing for me to say. Front end engineering now is so hard. I don't know why JavaScript keeps on changing, Eli. Why do they keep on changing JavaScript?
Well, hey, the guy who created JavaScript has literally said JavaScript should die. He literally said, I don't know why it's still around.
It's created in 7 days, and now here we are, 21 years later, and we're running assembly inside our browsers. It's crazy. With WASM and all that. But yeah.
Fair enough. But how far does that scale? So
How far does that scale?
you guys got
It's
to
scaling for
100.
us right now. It's scaling for us right now. To be honest, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it'll get us to 200 people if
Yeah.
I, um, and then we'll figure it out from there. The there are certain things I miss about being in the office, just the like camaraderie and like being outside my house more often. But I think some of that can be solved by just like doing off sites where or on sites. Um, we haven't done one lately, but we've like flown in and everyone into one area and like say hang out for let's work together for a week. Um, but there's like just so many benefits from working from home too. The lack of commute, like the the ability to like, hey, I'm not at my computer. I need to go use the restroom, right? Like it's my restroom. Or hey, maybe I need a 15-minute nap. And in the past, I would have like snuck away in the office somewhere and like closed my eyes. And now I can just do that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also just making sure that you're accountable, right? So that's all I was saying about like someone who's had a job before. It's like, cool, you're gonna make some of your own hours, but you got to be there and when we need you, and you need to be producing. And if you're not producing, we'll let you go.
Oh, fair enough.
It's like that's just frankly, it's frankly that and that's really hard to do for the record. It's very easy to say that. It's very hard to be like, hey, I think it's time for you to move on. But it's a thing that happens.
Yeah. So then, if you were an 18-year-old right now, because technology is changing, AI is here, and we have all these kids nowadays that think they don't need to understand anything about programming because they're all going to vibe code. What would you tell? Because one of the issues we run into is when people start, the world looks different from when you start training to when you actually get to the job market, especially if you go to college. Like with where you're at, what would you tell an 18-year-old to think about focusing on now? Like, what do you actually think will have value till they get out, let's say in 4 years?
This is I have an 18-year-old who's going to go study game design, and um, I'm really trying to prod him to use some of these tools. Like, I think you need to be. I think the vibe coding aside, right? Like, there's hey, I can like make a simple app in 5 minutes that like runs in a browser, and then there's like actually making real software and all that stuff. I think you should totally be open to using an LLM. You should have it help you write all your assignments and all that stuff. But you need to be able to go in and understand the output of that. So go in and like test it and like break it and like try to add new things or um, just explore. Maybe my son in particular, he wants to be a video game programmer. Write a game like from start to scratch. Get it published. Like the barrier to entry now is even lower, where you can like sort of if you know enough coding, you can vibe code your way into basically anything. I think the it doesn't necessarily need to scale to get into an app store. Like if people are using it, then you figure out how to scale, and that's when you get more. Um, you'll figure it out. Like you'll have to like figure it out. It's not a good answer though. It's a great question. I think why did I get into programming at 18? I was just so in love with computers.
Yeah.
Um,
For you.
and I had been using them all the time. I think there just has to be a passion for that stuff. Also, what you learn in college is so it doesn't come up much in real life, at least in my experience. When you're actually making software and you're just like a journeyman programmer, um, it's rare that you're like invoking your algorithms class and trying to figure out, hey, is this now you're totally like looking at performance and you're saying, hey, am I O of n squared or am I doing too many operations here? But being able to do that analysis that you learn in college, I'm not 100% sure like it's super useful. And some of the tech that I was using then I think academia could be sometimes so far ahead. Like neural networks and stuff was things I was doing now 19 years ago. That was like my senior project, writing a neural net that can figure out what a mushroom is poisonous or not. That was my senior project. And neural nets didn't come up for me professionally again until like the last 5 years but that's me, right? Maybe if I had gone into working for OpenAI or something like that, or academia where they're like all that stuff's really important. So I think my advice would be explore, have fun. College is about networking more than anything else. And these are some of the people that you're going to have, they're going to be around you for the rest of your lives. And I think you should focus on that and have fun. And don't be afraid of LLMs because they're going to be everywhere. I know that like the companies could go bust, but like the basic chat LLM, I think is here to stay.
Oh, fair enough. So we're getting to some of the final questions since we're about the 2 hour mark. So one of the interesting things, just so you're a startup founder. So I mean, I know you, but you were at AI in production. Is there an actual, do you perceive an actual tangible value to when you present at AI in production or doing things like this? Is there some, do you do this for fun because you like to give back to the community, or is there something where you're like, no, you actually think there is a value to doing this type of thing?
There's value multiple ways. One, it's really good for me and my process to say, hey, I have to hit a milestone and making this milestone be like this big conference where, hey, ahead of that, I have to have a working project. Um, it's a great motivator for me. That's just a personal thing. Um, Talking and giving back to the community is something I've done throughout my career. I wouldn't be here unless there were people who came and talked to me. Um, and I think it's just giving back and um, this gives me fuzzy feelings. I want people not to feel some of the imposter syndrome I felt, especially early on in my career. And um, I think like talking about all this stuff it also helps me overcome some of that still. And then no, this definitely helps the business, the company, like doing all this. It's just marketing and branding, and uh, this may sound slightly cynical, but like when people are buying things, they're buying a story a lot of the time, and I think I mean they're buying the actual value and the utility, but there are multiple people who can do similar things, and it's like why go with one person over another? And like doing this gives you legitimacy and proof of like, hey, there are people who are willing to listen to us. Um, like this is super cool. We have like 16 live people on this call. Like that's crazy to me. I didn't think anyone was going to show up. So, Christoph, really thank you for that suggestion. You're 100% right. Go discover, do a startup.
Okay. And then one of the final ones. So, without getting into politics, don't care about Democrats or Republicans. But so right now we have a lot of stuff going on in the world. So we have tariffs, we have interest rates, we have whatever may or may not be happening with the economy. So, as a CTO, as a co-founder, what are you actually concerned about right now? Or are you? Is everything just fucking fine? You don't care? Is there any like what's keeping you up at night with kind of like outside of your infrastructure, like world events? Or is
Right, yeah. Um, every fellow entrepreneur I talk to, whether they're in software and other spaces, is suffering right now because of the uncertainty that comes along with this tariff talk. And it wouldn't matter if the tariff like if the tariffs were on,
yeah,
we could all adjust. If the tariffs were off, we could all adjust.
yeah.
It's more of a matter of the not being confident that the people who are supposedly in charge of our economy are going to keep it going. Because, man, we've been through a few black swans at Pandium. I mean, COVID was the biggest one by far. The NBA shutting down on March 13th. And then me and Christina had been talking about it for 2 weeks right before then. And we were like, all right, we're doing it. And there were tons of people sick in our office, and including Christina. And um, that next 3 months was tough. Like everything dried up. There was no sales conversations. There was no one wanted to get on the phone, and you're just sort of coasting. And I don't feel like that way yet with what's going on right now. It's not that bad, but I really do wish like we could get on the same page about this stuff. And it and I would also say like the uncertainty at this point, being uncertain is now something that people are incorporating into their risk models. And so actually some of that's starting to come back, and like we're having more conversations and people are able to plan a little bit. But no, man, it's just this cognitive load. And it's something that's happening to a lot of business people throughout the entire world.
All right, fair enough. So to end this with a lighter question, the most important thing for viewers, especially on YouTube, is what is your daily driver? What computer do you open up every day and do your work on?
Oh, it's a MacBook Pro M1 that
Oh,
was handed me down. I only use hand-me-down computers.
really?
Uh, my developers, they get the best computers in the company, whatever is the latest MacBook Pro. Yeah, as we were saying earlier, $4,000 spent on a developer compared to like the productivity they get out of that is just doesn't matter. It's like doesn't equate. But yeah, I'm using a MacBook Pro M1, and I love it. And I hope I can get a newer one soon. Some of these Macs now, you could get like so much RAM, you can run an LLM on it by itself.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You got to pay $5,000 or $10,000, but what else could you use 512 gigabytes of RAM for? I don't know. Jeez, dude.
Yeah, fair.
That's super cool, right? We're in that world.
So would you ever go Windows? Because I get that
I
confused.
was I was a Windows guy for a long time. It was 10 years ago that I finally made the switch. It's a lot easier to get people up and running on a Mac in terms of development in my space. It's a Unix machine, so it has a lot of Linux-like properties, and Windows now is caught up a lot in the last couple of years, but like inertia is like not going to make me switch back. Windows 11 is a giant mess. Anytime I want to like mess with a game or anything, I'm actually still on I think Windows 10 on my gaming laptop. Just I'm a big Windows XP fan. Windows 2000. I wish when they changed it from XP, that was the end of the line for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. So final thing, is there any final, I don't know, statement you want to make to the people who are still watching? And when this goes to YouTube, anything you want to say to the world?
Yeah, just don't be afraid of AI. I don't think it's going to take anyone's jobs. I think it's something that's a tool to be used. Be highly skeptical of what it produces, just like you would be skeptical of anyone else's work. Verify it, and um, things always are changing in the software world. Some things will always repeat, like, hey, there's going to be a new JavaScript framework next year, I'm sure. Um, but then there's like these massive shifts that happen where, like, hey, we're no longer using punch cards to program. We're now using typewriters. And oh, now we're not using typewriters anymore. You have to use a word processor. And we're now in this world where it's like, you're not writing assembly. We haven't written assembly, most of us. I did meet someone who writes assembly for the record at AI in production. And so when I gave him this example, he was like, I write assembly on Seuss. And I was like, cool. Thank you for your service. My point is, it's a tool. Get used to it. There's going to be people who need to use this and are going to pay for you to be a master of it.
Cool, cool. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. So this was, fireside chat, Shon Urbas with Pandium. So I think it's pandium.com you can go to take a look at what they do. So I'm trying to do this as often as I can. So next week we are going to be having one of these with guy David Cox. He's going to be the vice president of AI models over at IBM. So we're going to ask him what the hell IBM has been doing with AI for the past 2 decades. That's a real question. And
That's a
what
super cool talk. Watson was so cool when it
um,
came out.
So we're going to talk about that. So make sure to go to silicondojo.com, sign up, and we will have more of these. And that is it. I'm going to start kicking you all folks to the waiting room. Sean, you can stick around and see y'all later.